3 real childhood nightmares that still haunt the survivors. The roommates list. When people say boarding school changes you, they never mention how it can haunt you. I was 13 when I started at Maplewood Boarding School, a quiet, ivy-covered campus tucked deep in the suburbs. Everything about the place felt too perfect: the trimmed lawns, the bell tower, even the way the rain always seemed to fall softly instead of pouring. But that calm hid something darker. My roommate's name was Weston. Pale, quiet, never laughed. The kind of kid who never blinked long enough for you to look away first. He gave me a folded piece of paper on my second night. No. Hello? No. Nice to meet you. Just a list. On it were random words, things I wasn't allowed to bring into the room. Frogs. Feathers. Salt. I thought it was a joke at first, maybe his way of breaking the ice. But he wasn't joking. When I laughed, he stared at me blankly and said, "It's not funny. Salt brings them closer." That night, I heard him whispering in the dark. At first, I thought he was praying, but the words didn't sound like English. They hissed, fast and low, like a chant. Every time I looked over, he'd stop. Every time I turned back, he'd start again. A week later, I found his notebook, hidden under his mattress. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside were dozens of handwritten names, scratched out one by one. Kids from our school. And near the bottom, one name wasn't crossed out yet. Mine. My stomach dropped. I didn't even know how to react. Was this some twisted joke? The moment I slid the notebook back, I swore I felt something watching from behind me. The days that followed were filled with silence and glances that lasted too long. Weston never said anything, but somehow, he knew I had touched his book. One night, I woke up and saw him, standing over my bed, smiling. Just smiling. His eyes wide, teeth showing. When I screamed, he didn't move. Didn't flinch. He just whispered, "You talk in your sleep." I couldn't sleep for days after that. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every whisper of wind sounded like his chanting. I started sleeping in my friends' rooms until one night I had no choice but to return. That's when I saw it, a live garden snake curled on my pillow. I froze, too scared to move. Weston just sat at his desk, staring at me with that same emotionless look. He said it was a prank. But when he opened a glass jar beside him, the snake slithered into it willingly, like it was obeying him. That was when I realized this wasn't about pranks, or sleepwalking, or school stress. Something was inside that room, something that listened when he whispered and moved when he called. And whatever it was, it didn't like Salt, the farm that never slept. When I was 10, my parents used to send me to my grandparents' old farmhouse in Pennsylvania every summer. They said it was good for me. Fresh air, no distractions. But the air there wasn't fresh. It was heavy, like the woods themselves were breathing. The house sat alone on 40 acres of trees. The attic had a single window that looked straight into the forest. That's where I slept. My grandfather said he built the attic room himself back when my dad was a boy. It still smelled like sawdust and mothballs. The first few summers were quiet. Peaceful, even. But one July night, everything changed. I was reading under my blanket when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, careful steps coming up the narrow attic stairs. I froze. The door handle turned just slightly, 6 inches open, and then, nothing. No one came in. No one left. The door just stayed open, like whoever was behind it was watching. I turned off my flashlight and pretended to sleep. I could almost feel eyes on me. But after a few long minutes, the silence swallowed everything again. The next morning, I told my grandpa. He chuckled and said, "Old houses make old noises, kiddo." But I wasn't imagining it. The footsteps were too human. 3 nights later, I woke to my bed shaking. Not violently, just enough for me to know something was there. I could make out the shape of a person standing at the foot of the bed. Still. Silent. Watching. I squeezed my eyes shut and counted to 100. When I opened them again, the shape was gone, but my closet door was wide open. After that, I started sleeping earlier, hoping whatever it was wouldn't bother me if I was already asleep. It didn't help. Every night, the same quiet steps. The same door creaking open. The same feeling of being studied. The summer ended. I told my mom what happened. She said I had a wild imagination, that the old house creaked, and I was probably dreaming. But dreams don't leave closet doors open. Years passed, and my cousin Francisco took my place for the next few summers. I never said anything to him. I didn't want to sound crazy. Then one day, years later, at our grandparents' funeral, he brought it up himself. He said, "That thing in the attic, it used to touch me." I froze. He said it would sit on his bed. He'd feel the mattress sink, feel fingers trace across his cheeks, his wrist, his neck. Sometimes it would hold his hand. I asked him if it was Grandma or Grandpa. He looked at me like I was insane. "It wasn't them," he whispered. "Its hands were rough. Scratched. Like wood." He said he told his mom, but she got mad and told him not to talk about it again. So he stopped. But it didn't stop. Hearing him say that, knowing I hadn't imagined it, made my blood run cold. It meant the thing that stood by my bed for years was real. It meant that for every summer we spent there, something else had been sharing that attic with us. Watching. Waiting. To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if I had opened my eyes 1 second sooner. Or worse, if I had ever seen its face. The girl in the yellow sweater. When I was 9, my bedroom window faced another house only a few yards away. We lived in a row of narrow townhouses, so close that I could see straight into the room opposite mine. For years, that window was always empty, until one afternoon, it wasn't. There was a girl there. About my age. Dark hair pulled into a ponytail, and wearing a yellow sweater. She waved at me like we'd known each other for years. I waved back. That became our thing. Every day after school, I'd drop my backpack and go straight to the window. She was always there, waiting. We played silly games. I'd draw something on paper, she'd guess it. She'd hold up pictures, and I'd do the same. On warm days, I'd open my window to talk, but she never opened hers. She'd just point to her ear and smile, like she couldn't hear me. When I asked my mom about the family across the alley, she said the Murphys lived there. An older couple with no kids. I told her about the girl, and my mom just said maybe their granddaughter was visiting. That made sense at first. But the girl never went away. Every single day at exactly 3:30, she'd appear in that same yellow sweater, same ponytail, same smile. Then one night, I woke up to a sound, tap, tap, tap. I sat up and saw her standing at her window. It was 2 a.m. Her face looked pale in the moonlight, and she was pointing down at something I couldn't see. Then she pressed her hands together like she was begging me for help. I was scared. I closed the curtains and hid under my blanket. The tapping went on for a while, then stopped. She didn't appear for 3 days. When she finally came back, it wasn't the same. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was pressing her palms against the glass, mouthing something I couldn't hear. Her breath fogged up the window, which didn't make sense, because it was warm outside. At first, I thought she was saying, "Hello?" Then I realized it wasn't that. She was saying, "Help me." That's when I noticed the stain, a dark blotch on her yellow sweater. It looked like paint, or dirt, or blood. I ran to my parents' room, crying. My dad rushed to my window, but when he looked, the other room was pitch black. No girl. No light. Just an empty window. The next day, I climbed the fence into the Murphy's yard while Mrs. Murphy was watering her flowers. I told her about the girl. The moment I described her, the yellow sweater, the hair, the games, her face went white. She asked softly, "How long have you been seeing her?" When I said, "A few weeks," she set down her watering can and told me to go back inside. That was it. No explanation. That night, my parents moved my bed to the opposite wall and hung thick curtains over my window. When I asked why, they just said, "To help you sleep better." We moved away a year later. For a long time, I convinced myself I had imagined it. But when I was in high school, my mom finally told me the truth. Years before the Murphys moved in, another family had lived there. They had a daughter named Jenna, 11 years old. One afternoon, walking home from school, she was hit by a car right in front of the house. She died instantly. She'd been wearing a yellow sweater. The Murphys sealed off her old room after strange things kept happening, lights turning on, the sound of tapping on glass, and once, a child's voice whispering, "Help me!" Now, as an adult, I live in a house with no windows facing anyone else. I keep my curtains closed even in daylight. Sometimes, in dreams, I see her again, standing in that window, waving slowly. But she never smiles anymore. And every time I wake up, I swear I still hear it, tap, tap, tap.